Hey, thank you so much for listening to Reversing Climate Change. This is Ross Kenyon. I'm the host of the show. The two sponsors are Eco Engineers and Philip Lee LLP. Oh, Eco Engineers. What isn't Eco Engineers? I've had a really great vantage point of carbon dioxide removal. And so often I'll start talking with a company and they will say something like, oh, well, we've been working with Eco Engineers for a while now, either trying to build this methodology or just trying to figure this project out, trying to get the quantification right, trying to figure this MRV out. That has happened to me so many times. And I've been glad to see them have so much success with so many companies in our space. Eco Engineers is essentially a consultancy that helps carbon removal tech and project developers get to market effectively. If you've ever started a company, one of the early decisions that you're going to need to make is which of these things can we bring in-house and which of these things do we need to pay consultants for? And often the conventional knowledge here is that it always makes sense to bring stuff in-house if you can. But I think bringing in very experienced consultants early on can save projects a lot of time and money. For instance, you might end up on the phone with David LaGreca. David's going to be on the podcast soon, and David has done, dozens of methodologies within the voluntary carbon market. And if you could just get on the phone with David for a little bit and you are trying to bring a new methodology or protocol to market, you have some new approach, you're a biochar project and you're trying to figure out, given your technology, region, biomass availability, what is the best way for me to work within the options that I have available to me? That's a person that you could very easily be paired with. David will likely shave off time and money from what would otherwise be a process that is pretty overwhelming. And that's just the start of it too. Eco has been engaged with people I've known or worked with, from everything from project design to the actual MRV plans, doing the LCA itself, registering the project, doing the diligence support, feasibility studies, tech evaluations, market eligibility. I feel like they're halfway to being an EPC without actually being an EPC for some of these things. Sometimes you don't necessarily need one person full-time thinking only about your project. Sometimes it makes sense to get 10 people on a fractional basis who have worked on collectively hundreds or maybe thousands of projects. Whether or not that will be the way for your company to go, you'll have to take the calls to figure it out. And I very much think you should do that. The link is in the show notes if you'd like to get in touch with Eco Engineers. Tell them Ross Kenyon sent you. Philip Lee LLP is a law firm with a lot of experience in carbon markets and carbon removal. If you've been working in this space for really any amount of time, you probably have noticed that you do need competent counsel to do business here. The contracts that get signed are frankly pretty weird. You're going to need help from a lawyer with a red pen. I'm sorry to inform you, your only choice is basically who they should be. And if you are deciding who they should be, you should be considering Philip Lee LLP. They've won Environmental Finance's VCM Law Firm of the Year for the last, since 2023, essentially. It hasn't happened yet for 2026. I imagine they're a contender for it this year as well. They are the largest legal team dedicated to the financing and development of carbon projects globally, and they have offices in the US, Europe, and the UK. One cool new thing I just learned, actually, is that they have been listed as a firm in Chambers Global as a global market leader in the area of climate change. This listing aligns Philip Lee LLP with around 15 to 20 of the leading law firms practicing in this practice area in the entire world. So congrats to Philip Lee LLP. Thank you to Philip Lee LLP for your generous support of the show. You make it possible for me to dedicate so much time to putting out content that I hope is useful to our friends and peers and fellow travelers in the world of carbon removal, climate change, and carbon markets. Thanks so much. Here's the show. Hey, thank you for listening to Reversing Climate Change. This is the host, Ross Kenyon. I am a climate tech and carbon dioxide removal entrepreneur. Before I introduce today's guest, do you know that there's a second podcast right now? I took the old feed of Carbon Removal Newsroom, which has been sitting dormant for a couple of years, and I just built a new show on top of it called Climate Workers Anonymous. If you're a millennial American, you probably know about Post Secret, which is where people would anonymously submit things that they were too embarrassed, ashamed, scared to talk about publicly, mail it in, and it would be published as part of a collective art project. And that's what I'm doing for people who work in climate. You listen to this show, it would not surprise me if you did work in climate or something adjacent. If you have something that you'd like to share that you would not like attributed to you yourself, you should go check out Climate Workers Anonymous, subscribe on Substack, whichever podcast apps you use. The link to do that is in the show notes. Also, if you wouldn't mind, before we start, opening up your podcast app and giving this show, Reversing Climate Change, a great rating and review on whichever podcast apps you use. I've been noticing a lot of people on Spotify recently have been giving me 5 stars. Thank you if you're listening. I really do appreciate that a lot. And if you aren't over on Substack following me, Climate Workers Anonymous, and Reversing Climate Change, you're missing some really cool content that ties in with the audio versions of the show. So if you are on Substack, you want a little extra, let's connect over there. Today's show is with my friend Varsha Ramesh Walsh. I invited Varsha on to untangle essentially what the D is in MRV. There's MRV, there's dMRV. I used to see people talking about MMRV, where these fault lines are, how that's changed over time. And I asked Varsha on to explain the taxonomical differences between all of these various approaches, as well as specifically what Offstream is doing at this moment, because I know that they've grown and changed a lot. Essentially, Offstream helps biomass carbon credit producers, or those who might theoretically like to produce carbon credits, figure out how to do so in as easy a way as possible. It's a huge lift to figure out how to quantify all of these things, and then also to figure out the relative merits of which methodology to use, which registry to issue your credits through, and about 1,000 other questions. There's a lot to know. And also, coincidentally, Offstream was the first sponsor, I believe, of Reversing Climate Change. When I started taking sponsorships a few years ago, Varsha was an early supporter of trying to stand that up, and I am very grateful. So thank you, Varsha. Appreciate you helping validate that as a way of valorizing the podcast. You help other people valorize their carbon removal projects, and you helped me valorize mine, funnily enough. Thank you so much to Varsha for being willing to hang with me on this level without a lot of warning. I had a lot of fun hanging with her. If you like what she's doing, you should definitely check out Offstream. The link to do so is in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Really appreciate you hanging out. And here's the episode of Reversing Climate Change with Varsha Ramesh Walsh. At long last, Varsha, thank you. We did it. We're in the same room together.
We did do it. Yeah.
I was explaining to you earlier that you're in this very unique spot that a lot of friends of mine find themselves in, where you've got a lot to say, you're very experienced, you've been doing this for a long time, and somehow that disadvantages you for coming on the podcast, because then I second guess myself. I'm like, Varsha can do so many things. We need to wait for the exact right, perfect thing, and then we'll do it. And that just means we've been talking about doing this for like 2 years or something foolish.
It's probably been 2 years. Yeah. But I think that and I appreciate it. One, because I don't get that many chances to come on your podcast, so I really want to make it worth it. And I feel like I did a lot of podcasts when we were about maybe over a year ago now, and they all capture how we thought about what we did at Offstream then, but it's actually like evolved a lot. And so this is my first podcast in quite a while. And I think that the way we understand what our customers need and like support them today is actually sort of different and much clearer than it used to be. So I'm really excited to get to talk about it. Yeah.
It's a really cool thing to talk about, because you started off doing one thing, it sounds like, and maybe the market changed, or your customers changed, or you understood yourself in a different way than you do now. And it's changed over time, which also isn't that easy for people to do. Sometimes people get really stuck on the way that they set out to do things, and it's hard for them to change. And maybe you've held this a little bit more lightly than others.
Sure. I mean, I think if you're game, I can go into some of the evolution, and also,
yeah, I'd love that.
I mean, you're a founder too, like why we like founding's a little bit of the story, but I think the way I like to think about it is that our North Star has like always actually been the same, which is true. Not everyone gets to have that. And I think I've been really clear that since starting Offstream, our goal is to help project developers like get carbon credits more seamlessly. And that North Star is like broad enough that I think what we've learned is like the way we do it matters a lot, and that has like been what's really refined. So when we started, I think SaaS was king. I was obsessed with this concept that it was going to be like a software platform. But I also believed that the best way to build good software was to do the work yourself and then build software once you figure out the work. So like I actually have to thank, I think Grant Faber suggested our like very first paid customer at Offstream was actually just a climate accelerator called Brink, but Grant Faber was doing a session
Brink
for
was
them
your
and
first
suggested
customer?
Brink, the APAC. Yeah.
I worked in their climate tech accelerator. I didn't realize that was your first customer.
I mean,
that's so funny.
when you think in the sense that like Offstream LLC was a thing and they paid Offstream LLC to like give a workshop on carbon credit certification, and when you're early, all you're looking for is someone to pay you to do something in the like realm of what you're thinking of. So they weren't paying us a subscription or anything, but I was like, this is sick. Like, Grant introduced me to Janina at Brink. She was sold, like, we put a contract in place, and doing that content, like, it was validating that people had questions about this process and needed support, right? Like, that was all I was looking for. The bar was much lower then. And we had a couple projects like that we did, and then we were starting to really like hone in on things. But anyway, the broader philosophy was that, you know, if you think about what you want to build a platform to support, if you can break it down into like 10 pieces and try to do the work at each of those 10 stages, it's the best way to then figure out like, what can you automate? What can you not? How do you build a platform to support it? So we always had that philosophy at Offstream. And so we were kind of just like doing the work for our customers while we built the platform alongside them. And that really started to accelerate through, I would say, like late 2024, all of 25. And in early 26, we had kind of been doing that now for like over 2.5 years. And what we realized was like, what our customers wanted was actually someone to just do the work for them. And so we had kept thinking we were going to like automate our human team out of doing what they were doing. And then at some point we were like, oh, actually, this is the thing people really want. Like, this is why they're choosing us. This is what makes it, this is what makes it actually work. And it's allowing us to deliver more value than we would if we were just a software platform. And so kind of what we first started doing by necessity turned into exactly what I think we're meant to do now, which we call it Managed MRV. But the way I like to think about it is like, we'd always been doing it. We couldn't really articulate to the market and to customers what it was called or why it was different from like the many software platforms out there. But finally the words came together, and I think, we wrote a blog post about it, and it's really caught on. Like, I think the language at Managed MRV resonates with people. I like to think about it as just like, we get the job done, but you can't sell a product called we get the job done. So instead we came up with this, and it really is just like words to describe things we've been doing for a while. But I think that that's an important skill for any startup to really get right, is like, how can you differentiate what you do and embrace it? So yeah, It's been really energizing.
If you want to understand the wormholes that have been chewed through my brain by the internet, the way that I'm going to ask this question will elucidate that for you, which is, do you know God, I'm so sorry to do this to you, Varsha. Do you know the meme format of the X implies the existence of Y? It'll be like, Willem Dafoe implies the existence of Willem the friend.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
I do.
It's like Managed MRV implies the existence of Unmanaged MRV. Is that a thing?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's such a good meme format. Should we
Oh, yeah,
turn it
there's a
into a
crossover
meme.
with. By the way, I don't know if you want to reveal that or not, but you have
I
college
will reveal
infiltrated.
that one of my moments of pride was when our teammate Emma was accepted into the writer's room of carbon removal memes, and apparently she's doing well. I mean, I only hear from her, but she's really
Reliable
funny.
narrator.
Yeah, we have a moderately reliable narrator in Emma, but genuinely, no, memes are a big part of our culture at Offstream, and it's actually it's like I'm so happy that like Emma came to just for 2 seconds. Emma came to Offstream not from carbon removal, not from anything in climate, and so like a proud moment is just that she understood the market enough to be able to contribute with humor, which I think is a really good milestone. So we're
Yeah,
proud
to
of
be
her for
funny
that.
about something, I think you need to know
You're gonna
a
get
fair amount about the fault
it.
lines, and you need yeah, there's a lot you
Exactly.
need to know. Yeah, she's
Exactly.
up to speed. She's very good.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah. So, yes, for managed MRV, like the existence of managed MRV does imply the existence of unmanaged MRV. Maybe the way I'd frame it is just like somebody has to manage MRV, and it's just a question of who. So, unmanaged MRV might be somebody purchasing a software tool that hooks up to their machines and pulls data in, collects it, has some definitely has some automations like looking for anomalies, and then prepares that data to be pushed out, usually to a registry, maybe to a buyer or another intermediary. Like I think every good software dMRV platform does that. And I think what we realized through like doing our work and building, like we do have a software platform because it's hard to do managed MRV well without it, is that there are lots and lots of steps that require both like, so it's the combination of expertise, like, okay, making a judgment call. What should I track? If I could choose to track like a photo of this versus an invoice, like what's better, what's more efficient, and then advocating for it, kind of like what's easiest, and then managing the admin work of actually like getting all the data every single month, making sure it gets collected, and making sure like systems are designed well, that they're actually like working, and then like reminding people, following up with them, like kind of looking at it with the human touch and then pushing it out the door. Like there's often a full-time person, whether they're like a head of carbon or a head of MRV, sometimes using that software platform. And so the management has to be done. And from our perspective, it's more expensive in many cases to do it in-house than to purchase something like managed MRV.
Okay. What do even people mean with MRV and dMRV? And I see these
Yeah.
things get thrown around, and we didn't really define it for people.
Oh,
I
yeah, we
imagine
didn't.
people probably listening, I imagine that they know, but
Yeah.
these terms are alienating to some extent.
They definitely are, and we actually shied away from the acronyms for a while as a result of that.
Did that
I
help,
like to,
or did it make it more confusing
well,
paradoxically?
it's hard, right? Because, so I'd like to define MRV and dMRV, but before I do so, I'll just spend a second on this. Like, we see that dMRV is something that gets asked a lot about in requests for proposals, RFPs. And then as a result, lots of early stage developers are going around with the checklist. They're like, okay, well, what's my registry? What's my dMRV? Like, what's my path forward? Like years before they need those things. But we sort of started to see that acronym, as well as like registry selection and some other choices, were signals that developers felt they needed to send to like the demand side of the market to show them they were serious. And so since we did that thing, we kind of embraced the category acronym, but it's, in embracing it, we've also had to sort of figure out how to articulate our unique approach to it. But perhaps we can start with MRV, which is a much broader category stands for monitoring, reporting, and verification. It's basically the process that needs to be followed to get credible carbon credits issued. Like, monitoring needs to happen of what's going on. It needs to be reported on, and then somebody needs to verify it. And actually, often there are 3 different parties doing those 3 things, right? Like, the project developer is monitoring, a platform is helping them take that data they monitored and report out on it, and then an auditor is usually verifying it. And so when people refer to MRV, I think they have different definitions, but often we'll hear it described like, what registry did you choose? What methodology are you following? And like, what are you monitoring? Who are you going to report it to? And who's going to verify it? And so that is like a much bigger umbrella category. And within it, there are these specific deliverables. Like, you could have an MRV plan, which essentially is a more detailed version of like, what exactly are you going to monitor with what sensors and what like frequency? Where is that data going to live and where is it going to go? And depending on the project type, that MRV plan might be 80 pages, like a BEX project has to, in an MRV plan, like identify every single sensor placement in the capture process and the storage process, and then also report out on often like the specific hardware that's going to be used. So all of that kind of lives in the MRV world. And then the dMRV acronym stands for digital MRV. And it's been kind of co-opted by the category of like software platforms that ingests various sources of operational data, visualizes them, helps to make reporting easier, and then sends them to be verified. And the D standing for digital is kind of funny to me because like everything's digital in 2026.
That's like kind of my follow-up here. Is there someone just standing there monitoring in person with a clipboard? And like, no.
Okay, so yes, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, like early MRV was done on pen and paper. So
how fun.
So we can that's why the D had to be added. But
now that's just the default, so maybe it's MRV as well. Are there any more dudes with clipboards, or is that fully outmoded?
I think there are still dudes with clipboards.
Okay.
I mean, the reality of, like, I would say most dMRV platforms today, even that have like the D in front of them, have some data that might have been originally captured via clipboard. Yeah. And I think that if that data on the clipboard is accompanied by some other data, I'm actually totally okay with it. You know? Yeah. I think there's such a, people get on their high horses about like data collection and data integrity, and there are things that are just impossible in certain contexts, and often those things that are like those specific projects are the ones that potentially have like the most social benefits, or like just are creating the most jobs. And so, you know, in an ideal world, there would be no human intervention in any of the data that is collected as part of a carbon credit. But like, I'm confident that in most projects today, there is like 95% plus projects. So it is what it is. And I think credit buyers understand that. And when there's human intervention, they just look for like 2 or 3 different data points to back up the one that was touched by a human so that they can have confidence in it. And that's okay.
Yes. So the project type you're describing strikes me as something like the work that's being done with distributed biochar, and there's cameras that are being installed on kilns so that they can theoretically have that captured digitally. No one can, of course, I think probably any system can be gamed, and I'm wondering if you've seen much of that come through your system. But
well, it doesn't have to be distributed biochar. Like, we work with a ton of North American lumber mills, and they receive feedstock deliveries and they need to track them. And so that feedstock is being delivered by a human driving a truck, and often the way we track them is some combination of like the truck odometer plus a bill of lading plus a photo taken by a human, you know? And it's like not, it doesn't have to be a rural distributed project to have these data collection limitations.
Yeah, you're like, okay, so what? You could put a transceiver on the car. You can track the mileage if you
Yeah,
wanted. You could have cameras doing things. Like I could see how if you had a perfect panopticon of a surveillance state, you could perfectly measure all of this. And like maybe that's the direction that the world is heading.
I don't think
But
so. Yeah, I
you don't think
mean,
so?
no, I don't think so.
I'm like being a little hyperbolic, not really, but a little bit. What here? Take issue with it. What do you think
No, I
is
mean,
happening?
no, I think that we have two forces. One, akin to what you're saying, like there's definitely a lot more, I don't know, like private data just in the public ether. But I also think that people are much more aware of data privacy and like trying to push back in some instances. So I think those will be opposing forces for balance. That's all. Maybe just like less sold that that's the direction. You know, I think we'll see.
I think.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
but no, but I think like the art, maybe just to bring it back to projects for 2 seconds, like I think that in the future, every type of operator with a physical asset will be a carbon project developer, and we're already starting to see that. like for
Everyone?
example, what? Everyone. Like if you own an asset that could either avoid emitting carbon or remove carbon, you at some point like you will be removing it and then getting credits for it or avoiding and getting credits for it. And this isn't actually that crazy. Think about it. Like you buy a heat pump, you get a tax credit for that. It's just an extension of that. And so anyway, the reason I believe this is because we've seen it in like the biomass space, carbon removal space. So, 3 years ago, the folks developing projects were all startups. They were all like biochar project developers, and that was their full-time job. Now, there are these operating companies that have wood waste that just want to produce biochar, and the carbon credits are mission critical to the economics. So now they're a project developer, but not really, right? Like they're not going to necessarily they're like a lumber mill operator that needs another revenue stream. And so I just see it going that way. And as a result, we can't have these like gazillion hoops that everyone has to jump through to get one credit. Like the way we get data needs to feel flexible to them so they can just keep doing what they're doing and we can get the data we need. So that's my
Don't mess with our hoops. We need
yeah.
our hoops.
The hoops. I'm for hoops. I'm for hoops. But
You heard it here first. Varsha's pro hoops.
I'm pro hoops. I'm kind of bummed actually that the NBA finals are over. I wanted another game.
Yeah.
I can't call myself a Knicks fan or a Spurs fan, but that's okay. I just wanted more hoops. So, no, I think that the hoops, like, it's a delicate balance, right? It's like you need to set rules and people need to adhere to them, but also and they need to improve. But at the same time, like, if we want this industry to scale, it can't be so expensive and like both like paying for vendors like Offstream, paying registries, changing your operating a lot, asking people that pay you for information that's really proprietary for them. Like I think there's some things that are challenging about the hoops. So our philosophy is like, how easy can we make it to get the data we need with like minimal changes to your operations? So you can just text us your data if you need, or you can WhatsApp it instead of like using an app, because we all know apps are dead. It's 2026. So yeah.
Yeah. This vision of the future you paint is so interesting to me, where it's like everyone who could theoretically create an avoidance or removal will eventually do so. I don't think I've ever heard someone make such an all-encompassing prediction about that. It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It makes me think of there are both good and bad ways to view this, but there's car insurance you can get now that's much cheaper because it measures your mileage and it has algorithms that runs it through and knows that you're low risk or high risk. And
totally. And you need your phone like in the car all the time, right? They check how
and
fast you're going.
You plug in and you're like, okay, this will save a couple $100 a month. But there's also this lingering thing of like, what else are you learning about me, and how is that going to be monetized, or like this is starting to creep me out. And also, everyone who has anything right now in AI, if you can build a proprietary data set that's industrial or something like that has value, that's the new moat that everyone is looking to have, so that they can train their own smaller sets and build their own models off of these smaller sets. And that's really that's like going to be the future. The way that car insurance works in that case is it makes your life cheaper and easier in so many regards, but also you're just like increasingly tracked and you're incented positively. It's not like there's some big brother watching you. You're just like, oh, I'm saving a couple $100 a month. And if you have all of that stuff that you're like, okay, I'm making carbon credits over here, all of my health data is going into my app here, this is like saving on my health insurance, all of my life is being quantified by algorithms outside of my control by billionaires who are frankly very bizarre men, then is that the future that we're heading into? And some of it's good, like obviously like better health decisions, better driving, better carbon credits, but also we're being observed constantly.
Yeah.
Am I freaking out? Is that too much for you?
I mean, I think that it doesn't freak me out, the future you just painted. But I think it's a social contract, and if I wanted to opt out of it, I would just opt out of it. Like, I would move somewhere, I would go off the grid, I'd get rid of my phone, I wouldn't participate. But, like, I am happy with the contract. I've opted in, and it serves me today. Like, they already monitor my energy consumption, you know? Like, they already know what I'm doing. They know when my sprinklers run.
Are they in the room with us right now?
They might be. And I think, you know, with AI, it's a great example. Like, I know... I mean, we pay for the tier of AI that doesn't train on our data. So, like, we have to. So we do that. Yeah. But, like, it still has our data. And it's a contract that I opt into because the utils I get from the AI are higher than the downside of my data being out there. And that equation may change. And if so, I would just opt out, you know? So that's how I feel.
Yeah. I wonder, too, this is maybe going too far, I feel, but it's all related here. I wonder, as remote imaging and sensing gets better, you're just like, oh, if you're outside, everything is being captured, and that's being fed into various systems. You're like, cool. Yeah. Is there,
I see that you're really concerned about the surveillance state, Ross. I am seeing that.
I had zero idea this podcast would go this direction, and I'm really sorry if that's not what you wanted it to be.
No, it's okay. I actually just don't share the concern. Like, I hear that you are. I think I probably don't know enough, and I don't want to. Like, I'm currently opting out of learning about that. Yeah. And this is something we talk about a lot. I think that as a founder, you kind of have to control like what data you take in versus not. You just ignore some data sometimes. And this is a category of information I'm just not actually going to open the door too much. So, yeah.
You're one of the few people who talks to me in this kind of way. I remember we had a conversation at Carbon and Bound, which I can delete this part if you don't want, where you're just like, you know what? That's not a thing that I need to be thinking about. And it's going to like pollute my information hygiene.
It is. No, I agree. I love that. I have that. But go ahead. I'm one of the only people who talks to you in that way.
I just think I like that idea. I've read books about controlling like what goes into your brain, so you have enough space. Your RAM isn't eaten up by a bunch of foolish things and blah blah blah, or just things that you can't control and like you shouldn't be focused on. But I've never heard anyone block a conversation topic in that same kind of way, where you're just like, no, thank you. We will go somewhere else. Like, okay, fine.
Okay,
Varsha.
You're right. Well, perhaps there's a more tactful way to do so.
You weren't rude about it. I'm being a little bit silly. But.
I think I was being open with you because we're friends, you know. I actually think that's been really an important tenet of like my growth. It was the ability to decide that like I didn't need to process all the information that was thrown at me all the time. And it came up for me during COVID when I really struggled. Like I had a hard time with the news. Like I just was like anxious all the time. I mean, the news was insane. There was so much uncertainty, and like didn't like it. And I was like, I could just not watch the news because what's going to change? I'm in my home. Like, and so for some time I just didn't. And it really helped me because I think there's so many problems in the world. And like, I really think it's my job to focus on the ones I can fix. And so, as a leader of an organization, I think I have an obligation to like keep myself educated on world news. And I do through channels that are less like alarming, let's call it. And then I choose to like read a ton about energy policy and like that sector of the news. And then I just like listen to our customers, and I just have faith that like those are the sources of data that I need. And so that means turning off faucets where like I don't want that like in my sink. I don't know if I love that acronym, but I just turn off the channel if I don't want it, and it's like really served me actually. So yeah.
I have so much envy for this, and I wonder what my life would be like if I were that, because I'm the opposite. I'm like, well, clearly I need to read the entire Talmud, and clearly James Joyce, I've only read a little bit of James Joyce. I need to read all of that too, and all the energy policy and all the other stuff and the news at the same time. And it's cool. You get to sound smart when you make connections that maybe other people aren't connecting in that way, but it's not like laser focused.
You're probably more worldly than I am in this moment, Ross.
How valuable is that though? Like you're serving customers, you know what they want, you're building something that is actually doing a thing that you think is really important.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm on that track for my own specific customer set. I never think of them that way, but
yeah. No, I think it's like chapters, eras, as my favorite artist likes to say. Like I'm definitely in a very focused chapter right now, and I think it's actually important to be able to modulate, right? Like focus and then zoom out if you need to. And so I do zoom out from time to time, but I zoom out within the context of like typically the energy sector and decarbonization and climate, and more broadly like infrastructure. Like the question I ask myself a lot is just like, what's getting built? Because of my thesis that like everything that's getting built has the opportunity to be a carbon removal asset in the future. So like, how can we just get it to do so, basically?
When we're talking about hooks, how come that's not the hook? I've never heard anyone say something so bold.
That's actually my whole thing. Like every piece of infrastructure today is clean infrastructure, even if we don't call it that. And like we'll need to generate some sort of credits and do reporting. Yeah. I really believe that. Like it just is.
And so whenever you're in investor meetings, you get to say our TAM is the entire world.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everyone loves that, right? That's a great thing people love.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, I try not to spend too much time in investor meetings, one. So in terms of channels. Two, it is actually like what I've always believed. And like the big question, like whenever we're interviewing candidates, they always ask me this too. It's like, I wish I knew our path from where we are today to like that future. That's the part that's uncertain for me, that I'll likely share in your new project on like things that bring me, like things that make me, I wish I knew like the perfect clear path where we go from, okay, like there's this really small segment of the population today who's doing these projects that utilize physical assets, whether they're new or existing, to like remove or avoid carbon. Like everything that's happening, low carbon materials, CBAM, like all that's happening in parallel. But how do we get from where we are to then this like, future economy where everyone is incented through capitalism to reduce their footprint and then remove carbon? Because I think that's inevitable. It's the direction we're going. It's just like those steps. I wish I had the perfect plan, because then I think we could, but I think the market will evolve, and it'll be very interesting to see the journey.
God, I know you don't think of it this way, but is it a nice version of surveillance capitalism? I was like, is that actually what that feature? Maybe
I
that
don't
might just
have
be like
enough.
the way
I
the
haven't thought about it enough. I mean, I think surveillance is like a negative way to put it, but I think humans are sharing a lot of their data today with various stakeholders as part of our social contracts. And like, if they, you know, and if that's like no longer serving the human population, like we will figure it out and get out of it, like collectively. So I guess I just believe in the future collective action of humans figuring it out. You don't, it sounds like. You're
no,
like really worried about it. Yeah.
I don't know. I have like, inside me there are two wolves, and one of them is George Orwell's "If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stomping on a human face forever." And like that's
Okay.
like one. There's like that's in me a little bit.
Okay.
And then I
Sounds
also have
good.
this like naive, like beautiful version where like we figure it out and we stop being so cruel to one another for very
Yeah.
few real reasons, and we sort of get it together before our technology outpaces our politics and we kill ourselves off before we can like
Yeah.
truly
That
grow.
is a concern for me, the slowness of politics and policy. You may or may not know I was actually a political science major.
I did not know
And
that. That's so
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I had aspirations of serving in the foreign service. I wanted to work in the government, and then I realized everything moves so slowly and I would lose my mind. But like I get it. Like my personal experience aside, I think that is one of my concerns, is that like the partisan, just like the partisan challenges globally, like include the US is particularly challenging, but even ex-US, like there's just really not this there we're so far from, I think, like where we need to be, which is that like people put politics aside and like pettiness aside to just like come up with some solutions that align with whatever their monetary policy is, whether it's capitalism or something else, and then like other priorities. And the change takes so long, no matter what. Like even in our current administration and in the US right now, like the farm bill is such a challenge. Like it's not even that partisan. You know what I mean? And so like that's probably the thing that concerns me the most of everything you just said, is that the policy will take too long to catch up with some of like where technology is going. And so the solution for us is the way I bring peace to my own brain in that is just like, can we continue to find private sector standards that companies choose to hold themselves accountable to, because then at least like there's some quasi regulation. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you before it gets away from me. We were talking about words, and it sounds like not only did finding the right words unlock new customer relationships or how you pitch Offstream to customers, but maybe it even helped you personally change how you understood what you're doing in your business. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Tell me about that.
sure. So I guess by embracing, like by having this language, like managed MRV, to describe what we do, it definitely has helped us like communicate to like external parties, like the difference between what we do and just like standalone software. But also it has meant we have leaned into like who we hire, how we staff the team, how we build product, and how we then want to grow. So we've always had customer success leads who were really talented, like typically engineering background or carbon science, and like really understood the methodologies. And now that we're leaning into this like managed MRV, we've doubled down on that. Like our most recent CS hire was a carbon science PhD. She's our first PhD, which is very exciting, but she's not too PhD about it. She's like really talented and humble and awesome and like very customer oriented as well. But I'm like doubling down on the basically like expertise within our customer success team was like a big change We build a ton of tooling that our team uses internally. So from a product perspective, we have a roadmap that's like pushing things to customers, but where customers just don't want to use software, we're like, okay, they can just notify us some other way and we'll do it with our own software in-house. And like, I do think that's the future of software. Like I'm not necessarily into like all of my apps replacing their dashboards with AI agent type things, but like I do think user interfaces are going to go away over time. And then the third thing is like as we expand, like, you know, we're really focused on biomass based CDR right now, but we've always wanted to support other types of projects and other types of credits. So we already do work in like tax credits, specifically a lot in 48E ITC, which is for energy production today. But as we do that, like this managed MRV just parlays into managed compliance, basically, right? It's like, I think we're going to really stick with the managed part of it because it lowers risk for us, it lowers risk for our customers, it gives them what they want. And it also, I think, is like potentially required to be successful in any sort of compliance field because everyone thinks compliance is black and white, but it's actually just a bunch of gray area, you know? Yeah, I actually broadly, like, that was something one of our advisors said to me early in Offstream's existence. He is just like a close mentor. His name's Gabe. He used to work at Indigo with me, and then he was at Ripple buying carbon credits for a while. So he's like really familiar with the market. And yeah, I do think most of compliance is gray area. And so having like management of it with a human who can reason and like make judgment calls better than AI will ever, and just like hold AI accountable is actually like just the future where we're heading. So yeah.
Varsha, you're such a strange, interesting combination of a person because you're okay. So there's like really big thoughts, but you also block out a lot of information.
Yeah.
I think also my guess is you probably had dreams about the soil enrichment protocol and like you dream in details
Right.
too.
Right,
And, like,
exactly.
So like yeah, so there's both of those, but then yeah, very very practical. Like I would trust you to get stuff done,
Yeah.
for sure. But also like our long running joke is you are such a noticer of body language that I will have like the most small thing. I'm like, okay, Varsha, I know that you notice everything emotionally that is happening here at the same time. The combination of things that you are is so bizarre and fascinating to me.
That was really kind of you to describe me so well. Thank you, Ross.
I got it right?
I
broadly?
think so. Yeah, yes. And like I'm actually a big believer in that. Like everyone's got a lot of parts and I just like let mine shine. So yeah.
I think you definitely let them shine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Varsha, we did it. I'm not even sure that it was the show that we intended to make. It's okay though, right?
I think it's a great show. I think it was a perfect balance of like everything I wanted to cover. Thank you for having me, and we'll talk soon.